Hi, everybody. I'm John McLaughlin, your current chair of the Iowa Firearms Coalition, and welcome to another Warrior Wednesday, where we are meeting and interviewing some of the key people that have been involved in my life and evolutions as a firearms person. And joining us today from Washington State, Samuel Middlebrook. He is the owner of Red Hawk Firearms Training and just totally embodies the warrior spirit. So, Samuel, how are you today? And tell me, who is Samuel Middlebrook?
Well, good evening, John, and everyone at the Iowa Firearms Coalition. Honored to get to be able to speak with you guys, and also honored to get to speak with John, who's one of my favorite human beings on the entire planet. My name is Samuel Middlebrook, and I live in Yakima, Washington. I am the owner of Red Hawk Firearm Training, and I do firearm training for private citizens and law enforcement, and get to enjoy educating people on a dynamic that love protects, and love is our motivator, and love is why I carry the tools that I carry and train with them regularly. And so I enjoy getting to do that. I also am the director of the Instructor certification program for a company called Active Self-Protection, which John is a proud graduate of and an exemplary graduate of. And yeah, this is what I get to do. I love to help people, and that's my mission.
You have another mission that has been with you most of your adult life, and that is making disciples. You're involved in ministry, and you'll never really be away from that. It's just kind of a different venue now, I might say.
That's a great way to describe it. I was a pastor of a Christian church for 26 years in various churches. And now I get to do my ministry on a gun range, and I get to speak into people's lives. I am a devoted follower of Christ. And my belief is that the surest sign of being a follower of Christ is making more followers of Christ. And my firearm training is just a part of it. It is another avenue that I get to leverage in order to teach people about life and about love.
And that's one thing that immediately drew me to you. I saw you at the national conference of ASP a couple years in a row, and just watching the interaction between you and the students. I was a student, and then I helped you, I guess it was a year and a half ago or so in September down in Kansas. And there's a lot you can learn about life on the gun range.
Yeah, I end every class I teach, whether it's for civilian or for law enforcement, I end every class I teach basically explaining to people that the lessons we learn on a gun range are applicable to every aspect of life. And I talk about how we leverage muzzle discipline and sight picture and correlate that into how our hearts need to be just as aligned as our sights are whenever we are on the range. And I talk about a principle that says that when we are shooting, whether long gun, handgun, whatever it is, our rear sight and our front sight are always aligned. Yes. But then I also talk about how in life, I believe our most dangerous weapon is actually right here with the words that we choose to say. And if we allow the rear sight of our heart to be aligned with the front sight, and the front sight would be the intent that we have for the other person and the betterment of their life. If we choose to not fire a single syllable out of this weapon here until those sights are aligned with each other, man, what an incredible world we would live in, and what an incredible life we would have. And so that's something I talk about often.
And visiting with your students and seeing the conversations that occur online after a training course, that is something people discuss. They're not so much, oh, he taught me about a better grip or thumbs forward or recoil control. It was more about the personal impact that you make in your classes.
Well, at the end of the day, John, whether we are teaching firearms or aviation or any other discipline in life, it all comes down to teaching people. And I cannot teach your gun a single thing, nor can you teach mine. But I have a lot to learn from you, and you have a lot to learn from me. And so if we focus on teaching the people, invariably there will be moments, no matter what the subject matter is, that we get to speak into the actual mind and heart and soul and life of the people that are involved. And that's one of my favorite things about being an instructor.
One of the things I took away from the instructor class that you put together is number one, we didn't really focus so much on teaching people how to shoot, because most of the people that are going to be involved in that are already fairly accomplished shooters and instructors in their own right. But that personal connection, and one of the things I took away that I just want to mention is that as an instructor, we may only be there in these people's lives for, an 8-hour class or maybe a 2 or 4 day class. But I tell people now, whether it's aviation or the range training, and I just taught a group of ladies and I said, you know what, we were only together here for 6 hours today, but now you have gained a resource for your lifetime. So anytime you have a question, concern, you want to talk about something, you have someone to call. You can text me, you can call me. And I say that to my aviation students as they're taking a check ride. And I said, I took $500 from you today, you passed your test, but guess what? You just didn't spend it for today. You now have me as a resource forever. And that is like life-changing to these people. And they do follow up a large percentage. Well, down the road, you get a call, hey, I'm thinking about this job, or, what do you think of this type of airplane? Or, what do you think of the 365 XL firearm, which I know you're a fan of? Just so many things like that I don't think going to a regular class where you punch in, you punch out at the end of the day, and there's no more interaction forever.
Well, I tell people this, something similar to what you tell your students, and that is that you paid me for my time for this class, but you've also gained a friend. And whether I'm a friend for the sake of firearms, or whether I'm a friend for the sake of life, you have my business card that has my cell phone on it, and you can call me anytime. And I think my favorite moments aren't actually on the range. It's when I get a phone call the next day and someone is asking me if they can ask more questions about the life lessons that we've talked about. And I think instruction, like we said before, instruction comes down to allowing your heart to connect with other people. And the subject matter is important. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it. The subject matter is something I'm passionate about, but I'm even more passionate about the people. And that's what I love.
So for the instructors that are watching this today, and there's a lot of them, not just in Iowa, but folks that'll watch this online, just give us a couple takeaways. Number one, maybe why we should take your instructor development course. And number two, just some keys you would share that would make them more effective as trainers out there in the classroom and on the range.
Oh man, what a great question. I would love to
only have a half hour though.
Okay, I'll try to whittle it down. The Active Self-Protection Instructor Certification Program is different than any other instructor course you will ever take. Simply because, at least in the firearm industry, I hold a whole bunch of certifications. And what that means is that I showed up at a range and I proved to another instructor that I can shoot and that I can string a few sentences together in a coherent manner. Most instructor certification courses aren't really teaching you much as they are verifying your current level of skill so that the instructor or the organization can put their stamp of approval on you and your skill. The Active Self-Protection Instructor Certification Program seeks to turn that on its head. And what we are doing is we are asking people to prove themselves as firearm instructors on their way in the door. There are some shooting qualifications and some writing to do. And we ask every instructor to provide us with character references and professional references that we do actually follow up on. And once you are in, and once you have proven your skill set, then we get to work on you as a person and you as a teacher. Because far too often there are people that know how to shoot, but don't necessarily know how to teach. It is an entirely different skill set. And so this program focuses on your ability to teach well and to connect well with students. And our measurement of how effective our students are at teaching It's not necessarily whether or not they can help someone shoot better, because there's lots of people that can help you shoot better. But the mark of excellence through the ASP instructor program is whether or not you can help people fall in love with learning itself. And that's a much different attitude as an instructor, to help people fall in love with learning, because that invites them into a process that is not necessarily results focused, but is focused on a continual process of learning and then learning some more and learning from every opportunity you can to improve yourself and improve your skill set. The instructor certification program is a 6-month-long program. It is largely distance-based. There are some books that you will be required to read. There are online weekly video meetings that are quite impactful, that tend to become the student's favorite part of the entire program. It's where we build community, and it's where we get to learn from each other. And there's also a 1-weekend travel weekend where we all get together for an in-person conference, and we get to shoot together, have fun together, but also learn deeply from each other. Teaching the instructor certification program is probably the greatest joy of my professional life, and I love it. And so if you're interested, you can check it out. It's aspinstructors.com, or you can email me directly. You can email me at samuel@activeselfprotection.com, and would love to connect you to that program if that's something you're interested in.
I'm sure the program has changed since cohort number 1, back on a very hot July day in Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh man.
I tell you what, you talk about the relationships there, and we had every level of people in that class, you know, from highly skilled, multiple real gunfights to people that just didn't even know if they belonged there, but of course they did. And I'm just blessed that these people now are like, you know, brothers and close friends, and people you talk to on a daily basis. And without that course bringing us together, it's just like my world would not be as good now as it is if we hadn't had those interactions, sweating to death and people nearly getting heat stroke down here.
Yeah, it was roughly the surface of the sun temperature when we were in Phoenix. We've moved that. We now are in South Dakota at an indoor range. It's climate controlled.
Beautiful.
But yeah, I think one of the amazing differences of this program is exactly what you described, because I love it when I see fellow graduates who went through the same cohort together now traveling across the country to teach classes together, to offer online seminars with each other, and to link their companies in a supportive way so that they continue to work together. And the relationships that are built through the instructor program can and will last a lifetime.
I'll just give you a little feedback here. I've had a young man that's been involved in my life. I did a little flying with him when he was 12 or 13 years old, and he was kind of almost like an extra son, but definitely could not focus in on one particular thing. He was thinking about a trade school, and then he enrolled in college and dropped out within a short period of time. And this young man, he came back to the Midwest, and I said, let's go shoot. He goes, oh, good. My mom got a gun, and he wasn't 21 yet, but I went with him to the range and talked about some of the stuff that we cover in the class, and the book With Winning in Mind. Remember that? Okay, yeah. I used some of that, and this kid was like amazing. And we went through handgun, and he called me a few days later and says, hey, you know, I'm going to join the Air Force. I'd really like to know how to shoot a carbine before I go to basic training. And so we did a carbine course for him, just private, one-on-one. And his life was literally so changed from a kid who had no confidence, and that ignition that you talked about occurred. And he was just like hot on the range. He was doing everything right. And he now had like a purpose. It's like, this is something I can do, and I can do it at a very high level with just a little bit of training. And I said, now here's the key. When you go to basic, don't tell him anything. You just perform when it's time to do the marksmanship stuff. So he called me.
Yes.
Because they all said, how much training do you have? You got the marksmanship ribbon. And I was top in my class. And I said, that's right. Be humble. Let the results speak for themselves. Now take that and carry it on into the future. And that kind of stuff came out of the training you did. So thank you for that. And I was able to pass that to somebody now who totally is like a changed person, not just joining the military and being involved in aviation, but finding something that they were really good at. And it doesn't matter like how physical fit you are or whether you're a super athlete or not, everybody can do shooting, and some people are just ignited by it.
And when you understand adult learning theory and you take the time to really process neural pathways and how they work and how we as instructors can leverage the body's natural tendencies, it's amazing how quickly we can teach someone a skill quickly and almost help them go from zero to advanced in a short amount of time by leveraging what we talk about in the program to help people fall in love with learning. And that's tremendous, John. I'm so excited for this young man and where he's going to go,
Sure.
because now he knows how to learn.
Yep, exactly.
And that will run itself into every stream of life that he chooses to pursue. That's fantastic.
It's good stuff. And thanks to you and the program and just all that you've done speaking into my life. You're one of the guys that I can wake up and I've had a bad day and I check my phone and it's like, hey, a message from Samuel, I love you. It's like, hey, it's like you got great timing, all right?
Fantastic.
So you're here on our Warrior Wednesday program, and you've went through probably, I would say, the toughest thing someone can go through and still be on this planet. So tell me about your journey through COVID, and those of us that were watching on the outside and praying. We were legitimately worried, but I can tell you as we prayed, and I don't even know if you know this, but we had a Zoom call while you were sedated in the hospital. And not to dive off into Christianity too much, but it's important to say that while we were on that call praying with a bunch of different firearms people, you could feel the presence of a Holy Spirit moving through. And I just said on the call, I said, Sam's going to be fine. And here you are. You look great.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so in early August, and you'll have to forgive me for not being exact, my brain's ability to remember the numbers and just remember it's a little fuzzy still. But in early August, I came in contact with COVID and became COVID positive and spent almost 2 months in the hospital and almost a month of that in full sedation, so that they could allow the ventilator to do its work and help clear out my lungs, help clear out my lungs and help me to breathe. And obviously I slept through the hardest parts, and it is so amazing to know that times like you're describing went on, where people were praying diligently and fervently for me and for my family. It's very humbling. And what I can tell you is that COVID really sucks, and it's something to be cautious about. And everybody gets to make their own decisions, at least for now, as to how we handle that. But I encourage people to show some caution and show some respect to it, because it is a very serious thing. What I learned from that is that joy is a choice. And I had a daily and often hourly, minute by minute opportunity to get to choose joy in the midst of fighting for my life. And no matter what your take on spirituality is, I invite you to consider this, that joy is a choice, and you get to choose joy if you choose it. And if you choose it, you will find that joy begins to work its way through you. And regardless of your circumstances, no matter what's going on, I had to learn how to walk again. I had to learn how to do basically everything all over again after being in bed for 2 months and my body atrophying, if that's even a word. And so I'm in the middle of a lengthy recovery process. I'm currently not teaching on the range yet. I'm not physically capable of that yet. But I am so thankful for life and breath. And every morning is a new opportunity to live my life And having that almost taken from me, and not to get too graphic, but it was almost taken from me in a very real way. But to wake up every morning and be grateful for life and grateful for breath allows me the opportunity to choose joy this morning. And I'm trying to live in it as best as I can.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I know even in the early years of your life, I think God prepped you for this moment by being a warrior, by refusing to give up. And that's, in the self-defense world, that's what it's all about. You can be hit, you can be stabbed, you can knock down on the ground, even shot. And we have to have that warrior mindset. We cannot give up. I am going to prevail today. I am going to fight until my last breath. And wow, what you went through this summer was just a total, affirmation of you have to have that spirit.
For me right now, another thing that I am learning is teaching people that your physical capability can and will change.
Mhm.
And that's why the things that we teach and the tools that we train with are so important, because when that day comes, I may not be at my best. And so right now, for me, I am not as physically capable of defending my family as I once was.
Mhm.
I'm working on that. Already spent 2 hours in the gym this morning.
Awesome.
But the training that we have, the awareness that we choose to maintain, and the tools that we train with are of vital importance, because life is precious. And for me, I don't train with the tools that I train with and carry the tools that I carry necessarily to save my life as much as it is to save Shannon's husband's and Levi's dad and Max's dad and Maisie's dad and Charlie's dad. And
What
when
about the
you
dog?
view, well, and my dog Willie, who you know and who loves to love people. He will love you until he determines that you feel loved. But when you view your personal protection through that lens, that I am not just saving my own life, I am saving the life that I love the most from traumatic impact by having me taken away violently by needless force.
Mhm.
And there is a massive difference between being a martyr and allowing yourself to become a victim. And so I'm choosing to not allow myself to become a victim. And the relentless fight through COVID was a great life lesson. It's one that I'm grateful that I have had, one that I wish on no one else. But the relentless fight for life is worth it, because life itself is worth it.
And that's why our group, the Iowa Firearms Coalition, is so in tune on protecting the Second Amendment, fighting against everybody that's coming to the state of Iowa and trying to take away what we consider God-given rights. So in November, we're trying to get the Iowa Constitution amended to actually include Second Amendment protection. So if the federal guys ever come into the state and say, hey, we need your guns, we need this or whatever, the Iowa people will say, well, you're federal, but we're state and nobody's going to help you. So that's kind of what we're up against there. What's the status of the Second Amendment in your state? I know you're on the right side of the mountains.
Well, I live in Washington State, and like many states, our voting tends to be controlled with a tight grip by the largest city, which for us is Seattle. And our state typically tends to be outvoted by 3 counties. Mm-hmm. And those 3 to 5 counties tend to outvote everybody else. And so Second Amendment values and Second Amendment rights are always at risk, because people tend to vote based on their fears, and we tend to fear that which we do not understand. And so there is a large contingency of people that do not understand firearms and frankly do not understand self-defense. And they have bought into the myth that is portrayed in television and movies, that the police can and that the police will save you. And the police are amazing. I love them. I volunteer my time often to train them. These men and women are heroes in my mind, and they are worthy of our honor and respect. But it is a mathematical improbability that they will be there in the moment that you need them. And the Second Amendment, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but the Second Amendment doesn't give us any rights. It acknowledges the rights we already possess. And when you have a large contingency of people like we do in our state that do not understand that, and frankly do not value that, it makes it difficult politically, socially, and in terms of worldview, to have a state that values that. So one of my missions is to educate people, and I love it when I have people show up to my classes. And just think this through. I have people that show up to my classes, which aren't cheap, but they show up to them, they pay their money, they take a class, and they will tell me right up front, I'm anti-gun. I don't want to own a gun. I think guns are evil. I think the people that carry them are bad, but I don't want to feel this passionately about something I don't know about. And so they come here to separate themselves from ignorance, which I love. Right. I would like to think I would be such a man of character that I would investigate with my own dollars and travel time that which I am against. Right. And so I love getting to teach people like that, because at the end of the day, they may not want to purchase a firearm, they may not want to carry one, but they at least understand our why, and they come away wanting to have deep conversations about self-protection and even the Second Amendment. And I think it's important for everyone in the Iowa Firearms Coalition to consider that you get to be an ambassador to your community, and at times you get to be a gun evangelist, and that is that you get to share with people that their life matters, and that the tools that we can use to protect our lives matter as well, because life matters.
Yep. I think the whole inclusion thing, you know, it's often overused and thrown around, but it is totally appropriate for what we're doing. You know, I don't care who comes to my class, no matter, you come in with purple hair and the tattoos over your whole body, and you will be loved like everybody else.
Absolutely.
And if we don't have that mindset and that in our heart, this conversation about rights and the Second Amendment will go nowhere.
Well, the truth is, if every life doesn't matter, then mine doesn't either. Right. And we need to think into our heads and into our hearts. Every life matters. Every life is precious, regardless of how that life is being used, whether we approve of it or agree with it or not. Right. And if every life matters, then my life gets to matter. And from that place of understanding, we all get to learn together. And the cool part is that my carry gun doesn't really care who's shooting it. Mm-hmm. My gun doesn't care about my political views or my beliefs on the world. It just wants somebody to shoot it. And so
I should say somebody that's capable of lifting it.
Well, yeah, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, I carry a rather significant firearm. But but yeah, the gun doesn't care who's shooting it. So we need to be open to teaching anyone and everyone, because then we are creating more allies for our cause of saying that human life matters and protecting our own lives matter.
And your motto again is?
Love protects.
Love protects. Fantastic. Samuel Middlebrook, we appreciate your time today, your insight, your wisdom, your heart, and hope to be talking with you again real soon.
All right. I love you, John. Thank you so much for having me. And to everyone in the Iowa Firearms Coalition, please, please keep up the good work. Take someone shooting, share your joy, even share your ammo, and let them fall in love with the sport and with the self-defense mindset, because life matters and love protects.
All right. Good job.